And at the time, I was in the automotive industry where we were really focused on 30-day windows. A lot of times it wasn't even 30-day windows. It was like the today window. And did we sell cars today? And that was a big lagging indicator. Even by the day, you would look at it and, oh my gosh, we need to make a sale. We need to make a sale. And what I wasn't focusing on was the leading indicators that led up to that sale. How many phone calls are they making? How many customers do we have coming in the lot? How many demo drives are they going on? What's the turnover ratio? How many are they turning over to managers?
Hey guys, it's John Gamatis back here again with the team from Exit Momentum. I've got head coach and founder Cullen Talley with us today, along with two of Exit's certified business coaches, Jason Ambeau and Deric Keller. And I want to start today with one of the questions that's plagued me for a long time. How do I know that I'm measuring the right things as a business leader? This is an area where I've struggled personally for a long time. I know a lot of other leaders like me and owners have struggled with the same thing. And here's what it comes down to. There is a difference between taking action and taking the right action. And I think a lot of us don't know the difference between the two. So we just focus on taking action. And we're always kind of wondering if we're doing the right things. It's like jumping into a car and not having a GPS. Like I can know what the destination is that I want to get to. But if I don't have some way to track along the way, whether I'm heading in the right direction, there's a good chance I'm not going to land at the destination that I wanted. It's really hard to stay on course and on track if you don't have some kind of a GPS in place to get you there. So we're going to have a conversation today about indicators, lead indicators, lag indicators. And Deric, this is something I know you've been talking with clients about quite a bit. You said something earlier that stood out. You're seeing a lot of businesses make knee-jerk decisions. And that's where I want to start today. Talk a little bit about knee-jerk decisions, what you're seeing, and then we'll get into how we can start to fix this as owners and leaders.
Oh man, knee-jerk decisions is something that we often make. I mean, this plays into the last episode where we were talking about, facts versus feelings. And we had, I personally had a client who had decided that they needed to eliminate a service contract that was part of their offering up front. And they did it based off of quick knee-jerk reaction when they had multiple customers cancel their service contract early. Early was 2 months early of a 12-month contract. So they pulled it out of their offering, and by pulling it out of their offering, it ended up costing them $3 million when we looked at the actual numbers of the client base, right? They had 297 customers. They had it was 11% of the customers had changed or had canceled early. And by them canceling early, or with that 11%, you still had 89% of the customers that were happy and paying and doing the thing. But because they eliminated it, it ended up costing them $3 million. So in that situation, if they would have just looked at the facts versus the feelings, it would have completely changed the dynamic of the way that they made that decision, because they gave up 88% or 89% of the business that they were. It just completely blows you away when people make that decision. I mean, personally, where I started jumping into looking at data and looking at the leading indicators versus the lagging indicators was when I read the book 4 Disciplines of Execution with Stephen Covey. I mean, he was like the first one that really introduced me to it. And at the time, I was in the automotive industry where we were really focused on 30-day windows. And a lot of times it wasn't even 30-day windows. It was like the today window. And did we sell cars today? And that was a big lagging indicator. Even by the day, you would look at it and, oh my gosh, we need to make a sale. We need to make a sale. And what I wasn't focusing on was the leading indicators that led up to that sale. How many phone calls are they making? How many customers do we have coming in the lot? How many demo drives are they going on? What's the turnover ratio? How many are they turning over to managers? And when I started to look at them different disciplines, I was able to change the entire industry. I completely blew up the car business and blew up the sales position. I actually got rid of salesmen and changed it to customer experience managers, because what I found is when customers had a great experience, they were more likely to buy, right? They're more likely to buy from somebody that they like. So that was a leading indicator. I wanted to make sure that the customers had that they went on the amount of demo drives. So I eliminated the objections. I had the pricing out there. There was a whole lot of objections that we overcame just by concentrating on the leading indicators versus waiting on that lagging indicator. And ultimately, we ended up increasing our sales from 60 to 80 a month to 250 a month plus.
Absolutely. Cullen, Jason, where do you guys see lead and lag indicators with your clients? Where does this land for you guys?
Well, it's so when you say accounting to people, right? What they never realize is that's post-mortem. It's done. That stuff's baked in, right? And especially if you look at your numbers on a monthly basis, it came from activity that happened in the last 30 to 60 to 90 days. Way late to do anything about it. Can you imagine being your manufacturer and you just make a bunch of stuff, and then at the end of the month go, oh, what? They're all defective? Darn it. It'd be insanity, right? But we do that in every other business, just looking at the final numbers. Deric described that really well. It's so easy to pick off in a sales process, right? Your sales are down. What do you got to do? Well, you got to sell more, damn it. That's simple enough. Listen, how many contacts did you make? Were they phone calls? Did you email? How many responses did you get? How many sit-downs? How many callbacks? I mean, like, really break down the process. And we of course, we love sports analogies so much. But if you look at any sports team, right? How did we lose the game? Well, we didn't score enough points. No shit. But why did we lose? Well, let's look at the number of fouls. Let's look at the number of fumbles, the penalty, whatever it is. You look at some data that says, well, here's what it is. Right? Didn't get enough yards per play. We didn't make enough three-pointers, whatever it is, but you need to know the data. So what do you go to work on? You don't go to work on winning more. You go to work on doing the things that create wins, right? And it's trust me, if we take these steps, we know the data means these steps create this result in general. Now, if someone follows your steps and they're still not creating the result, that tells you something too. You probably have the wrong person in the wrong seat. But unless you understand and are tracking those leading indicators, what happens before the end result, you're going to get a result, and the only thing you're going to have is a post-mortem. Well, he's dead. How did he die? Well, we know how he died now, but is that helping the dead guy? It's not.
Yeah, Jason, as you're saying that, I'd never thought about this before, but I think about even when I watch particular games and you get the likelihood to win as it's moving during the game, and it's like, wait a minute, and they've even got it before the game even starts, right? So
Yes.
How in the world is this calculation being done based on this team versus this team? Well, they're looking at what they've created in the past. There's a sequence of events that occur, and I think that's the key thing for us. So many of our clients have not stopped and said, okay, here's the end result that I want, right? Like when Deric was talking about running all the dealerships that he ran for those years before he got into some other businesses. And then what happens before that? What happens before that? What happens before that? And what of those things do we need to measure? What of those things matter? What interval do we need to be checking in on? I see people all the time overreacting to daily data, and overreacting to monthly data. It's one of the reasons we push so hard for teams to really think about what are the right numbers weekly across the business that help you see who owns those numbers, what's the goal for that number, so we can manage through that. And then I can have a more tempered reaction and choice versus, oh my God, Tuesday was terrible, Wednesday was great, Thursday was terrible. It's like, whoa, dude, I don't know how you manage a team that way. Those kind of highs and lows wear people out. And the other problem, of course, is so many of the businesses who only look at the financial number, or only look at financial numbers, and they only look at them at the end of the month. And oh, by the way, oftentimes those businesses are not great about closing the month. So now they're closing the month on the 15th or the 22nd. So now I'm 45 to 50 days behind. making a reaction, right? And in so many of our businesses too, we deal with all kinds of industries, but I think about some of our clients in bigger projects, whether that's commercial construction, industrial construction, businesses like that, businesses that have lead times on product they're getting from other parts of the world, right? Where they're having to be ahead of these things and make these decisions. And so they can really get in a bad spot if they're not looking at those things, because I can be crushing it one year. Well, if I'm in commercial construction, the bids I'm doing now are for probably 2 or 3 quarters from now, not next quarter, right? So I've got to be thinking about that as we move forward. How do I manage that backlog so I'm continuing to move forward? What are the activities I'm handling in terms of new people, architects I'm meeting with, bids we're sending, all of those kind of things to drive that. Same thing in terms of, our clients who've got to get materials from other parts of the world, especially with some of the challenges we've had, looking at what's happening early enough so I can make those decisions so I don't have too much money tied up in inventory, right? But several clients who in that situation overreacted to some supply chain things, weren't really looking at the data, like we got to get it. And then they got millions of dollars sitting in inventory and trying to manage their way through that, considering they have so much cash tied up in that inventory. So there's a number of things that happen here in terms of, one, the activity that Deric and Jason talked about, but then 2, just the business management of how do I manage the business, conserve cash, and make sure I don't have this high-low mentality as a business, either on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, so we can actually move forward. And so there's an ability to look at that. And I see our clients over time. I was with one last week, very successful, really, really smart in the building supply business in the Southeast U.S. And they are so committed to looking at this stuff, and they constantly are pulling up those data points when they're having conversations about a particular topic. So it brings some density to the conversation versus a lot of talking. They're able to leverage that even at a departmental or branch level to say, okay, is that really true? Right? Because the data, one, helps me with activity. It also helps me frame, is what we're saying actually true based on what we see? And many times, what we're saying is sort of true. It's directionally right, but it's not actually clear. And so that data helps us get clear about that so we can actually solve the thing we're trying to solve, or recognize maybe we don't have the problem we think we do, and we're burning a lot of calories on something that maybe isn't where we need to be spending our time.
Right. I mean, a lot of times, so it's funny because I was watching this Netflix special last night on coaches, and it was Jill Ellis, the old coach of the women's Olympic soccer team. Mm-hmm. She was talking about the win in the coast, right? So like you get this big win, whether it's in sales or whether it's in really any industry. A lot of times these people have this mentality of that I've arrived, I've gotten there. It's I've hit the win. And she made this quote the other when I was watching it that said the peak is small and the air is thin. So like when you hit the peak, you need to come back down and get your butt back to work, right? Because ultimately what happens is that when you hit that coast button, things tend to fall apart, right? So you don't want to keep scrambling and chasing and trying to get, you will ultimately end up stuck when you stay on the peak and run out of air.
It's interesting. So I'll tell you a story about a client that I'm working with right now. They had an issue that they identified. Well, I helped them sort of see that they were really good at selling what customers needed, but not necessarily other things, right? Really good at closing on what the customer request was, but not so great at selling other services and products to them. And the problem where it sort of illuminated was their salespeople. They got the right salespeople because there was one particular product bundle that they were selling because it was the most expensive one. It paid them the most amount of money. They were upset about that with their team. And I went, time out. You got the right people. That's the sales team I want that wants to exploit the commission system on their behalf. I've got the right people. Your problem is your system and your product, right? Your product bundles aren't right. So we went to work and figured out, first off, which is our most profitable products and what bundles would be the most profitable ones for this company to sell that also fills the customer's needs, right? When we figured that out, we're able to put some bundles together, sort of an entry-level, better and best sort of package But the better package is the most profitable one, the one in the middle where people normally choose anyway. Now we're sticking a little spiff on that. So that although the best product, quote unquote, pays them more commission, they make more to sell the middle product. And why is that important? Because it makes that company more money, but still serves the customer's needs. Without data, right, without looking back and doing the hard work, they would have never figured that out. They went on some assumptions. Well, we're selling, this one's $100 and this one's $60. 100 is more than 60. It must be better. And it's not necessarily true until we dug into the data and they did the work. Now their program is designed and very specifically, the compensation system is aligned with what makes the company more money, right? And they'll be able to track that. Again, as to Deric's point, with the leading indicator is going to be for sure, like to be really clear now. Are you selling more of the best product, the better product, not the best and not the entry level? Because that's where we make the most amount of money.
Yeah. So the thing that I want to be conscious of too on this one, especially as we think about knee-jerk reactions and this idea of indicators, is where is the business owner? So if I think about, business owner watching this, I'm like, many of them may not have access to some of that data, right? And so they wind up thinking about an end state from a indicator scoreboard standpoint that I need to have all these numbers. Well, they're not available, or it's going to take us 17 days to produce that. So my thing, in the way that we encourage clients, is to think about what we can get now. So if we can think about what's available to us fairly easily, right, that somebody can gather, and then thinking through that sequence that needs to occur. What do I need to measure? And then we're gonna iterate through that. We're gonna get better at that. Our systems are gonna get better so that we can do the analysis that Jason's talking about that allow us to determine, hey, gross profit on this group of products is X. Well, some of our clients, even very large clients, may not have that visibility yet. So what I would say is, let's be honest about where you are. Let's just be honest about that and own the fact that some of you, your data sucks, your system sucks. And it's going to be a minute before you have it. And so let's just be honest about that. And for those of you that invested the time and energy that have it, fantastic. Let's not overdo it. We don't need 50 variables and 50 numbers. So some of you have some great systems, but you want to look at too much shit. It's mind-boggling. You pull up your 47-page spreadsheet and go through it, and everybody's everybody's brain is leaking out of their ear by the time you're done. Nobody's made any decisions. Now we got a massive update, right? Staring at the screen, but nobody's done anything. So I think there's two things to think about here, which is where are you and where can you start? And if you have a great system, let's not overdo it. Every number is not necessary, and it actually can defeat the purpose. You will miss things because your team will not absorb it, because different people can absorb different amounts of content and numbers. And just because you can does not mean everybody can. And we've got to do this for the greater good of the organization.
It's a great point, Cullen. It's such a slippery slope, right? If everything is important, nothing is important.
Right.
Making sure you choose the right data. It's a fantastic point.
Yeah, one of the best ways that I found to explain leading and lagging indicators is much like a maintenance package, right? So like when you think of a maintenance package on your car, a maintenance package on your air conditioner, a maintenance package on whatever product that you have to do certain things to make this product continue to run optimal, right? To continue to run. If you're waiting for that lagging indicator of it breaking, you're going to be in a world of hurt, right? It's going to cost you a lot more rather than having that maintenance package, that design maintenance package. And I think that's what we bring to the table a lot is helping you hone in and design that maintenance package so you know what you're looking at, why you're looking at it, when you're looking at it.
Yeah, I think that's cool too, Deric. You mentioned that because tracking leading indicators can build wins as well, right? Like stacking wins. Think about working out and training. If you get up, you're determined to get in better shape. You go to the gym, then one day you come home and jump on the scale. I didn't lose 20 pounds. No shit. No, you have to just start worrying about, for the next 30 days, you're just going to go every other day. Right? We'll get a lagging indicator of your fitness down the road in some measurement, be it BMI or overall weight or whatever it is, your pant size, whatever you're going to look at. But the key is, are you checking the box every other day at the gym or every day, whatever your plan is, right? And that builds momentum and builds wins that eventually create the outcome and the result that you want. I think that's a key point in that leading indicator that Deric's talking about.
Yeah, it pounds right into the compound effect, right?
Yep.
Where do you guys think clients get stuck the most when they're trying to figure out what the correct lead indicators are supposed to be for their business? What's the biggest challenge they face as they're trying to figure that out?
I think it's data that's not connected. They come up with numbers that really don't have a direct impact. And as Cullen said, I look at their scoreboard, I'm like, you got 17 things here. Which one of these are directly impacting the result? And they're not clear about that. And oftentimes we can go, hey, there's really 3. And let's focus on these 3, and that'll move, and let's see if that moves the needle.
Yeah, I think to both Jason and Cullen's point is they're trying to do too much. They're not focusing on one indicator or not focusing on just this one thing and really trying to make it work. They're trying to focus on everything and make it work. They're looking at way too much and trying to change everything at the same time.
Yeah, so to me, it's again, I come back to the idea that they're doing almost nothing except looking at the P&L at the end of the month and making sure they got enough cash to make payroll, and they're just kind of hustling and grinding and being busy and stuff like that, or they're super like way deep in the analysis and getting all kind of information and overwhelm. And so that just a simplification. The other mistake that I see is feeling like they're not willing to iterate through this, right? The numbers that we look at early in the process with clients often change. We start to see that once some things get handled, there's a pain point that drives the need to look at certain numbers. Over time, once we've solved that, oftentimes those numbers drop to a departmental scoreboard that marketing's looking at or operations is looking at, but we don't necessarily look at the ownership level. We know it's being tracked and maybe 1 or 2 rolls up. But not being willing to iterate through the fact that, hey, as we solve some of these things, these numbers, not every week, not every month, stuff like that, but we step back quarterly or at least annually to say, are these still the right numbers for us to be tracking? Yes, we've been looking at them all along, but if we're not having a reaction to them, like we need to fix that, or that's awesome, like there's not an emotional response, it is the wrong numbers. If it's just an update, that we do not have the right numbers. So what I'm looking for is, does it cause a reaction with the team as it relates to the health of the business, good or bad? If it does, great. If not, then a nice update. That's not going to serve you really well, because it's not causing you to have a reaction of we need to take this action, or we need to acknowledge the success and the win we've had.
That's interesting. Yesterday, Cullen, I was talking to a client, and we're looking at their AR, right? And they were so excited because the AR was for them a big number. It's $300,000. They were like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "What's so yeah about that? How about $300,000 in the bank?"
Yeah,
and they get panicky when AR is too low. Like when you've collected from your clients, yeah, wow, like they want to keep this number high. I understand the thinking behind that is that's pipeline money, but the truth is, when we started to dig into the numbers, 60% of that was over 90 days. Clients just not paying.
Yeah.
And when we identified that, there was one of my owners yesterday was like, "Hold on," and he picks up the phone. I'm like, "Oh, we're not fixing it now, but I'm glad you got the urgency of this idea."
Exactly.
It's not great to have a massive amount in your AR, for heaven's sake.
Exactly.
And let's get real about what's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's one of those ones I'm telling clients. Listen, did you actually want to be the bank of Jason? I didn't realize you were, a bank, and that's awesome that you've decided to be decided you were going to be in technology and a financial institution.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And you have no way of protecting yourself and everything else, but now you've turned into a financial institution. But it is, John, back to the point of this topic, which is obviously indicators. It's one of those things that can get away from us when we're not watching it, and it can be one of those things that catches us off guard, and then we start to tell ourselves stories about what's possible and stuff like that. I was with a client yesterday who was in a similar situation, and I have another client in their industry that I texted, said, "Hey, tell me your AR balance," and he was like 0.5% of sales, and these guys were more in the 5 to 8% of sales situation. So I was like, "Hey, similar size, similar market," and so some of those things too. And that's where, again, when we're looking at these, when we have these numbers, it can be very powerful to compare them to peers in your industry and seeing what's best. If I don't have the numbers, I don't have a benchmark to work against. So that's the other thing that we see when we do the hard work. Let me say that again. When we do the hard work of getting these numbers and having them available and tracking them over time, I can then benchmark myself against others in the industry to say, hey, does this align? Because that data is available, but if you don't have it, I can't compare it.
This is an awesome conversation, guys. A couple of highlights from my side as an owner listening to you guys unpack this. You got to be willing to do the hard work. I think there is the reality that finding the right things are going to be the hard work, but then the balance of that is keep it simple. We've done this on our side in the past where we've had way too many leading indicators, and half of them were not actually leading indicators. They weren't giving us anything other than some data that confused everything else. So making sure you track the right numbers is always the most important part of this conversation. Those lead indicators have to be the right lead indicators. And I think it's easy to get stuck on the wrong things, take in the wrong data, because now we have so much access to so much data, it can be overwhelming, and then we get nothing done. So I appreciate this conversation today, guys. Cullen, so I'm in the process of going through this. I'm trying to figure out what the right lead indicators are. How can Exit Momentum help me pull that off?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have content on the website that you can certainly check out and see to help you think through that. There's a downloadable you can use that helps talk through some of the thinking about that. You can also book a call with one of our coaches, and on that call, we'll have some conversation about where you're going. We'll share some things with you about the structure of how we think about that, some clues that can help you get that done. Happy to do that because we believe we have to deliver value with every interaction. And if there's a reason to take a step further and step into a fit meeting with your leadership team, so if we can see if we're both a fit for actually potentially working together, we would make that investment as well to go through. But that first call will be the intro call. And again, we can spend some time driving some sanity toward your numbers and helping you see through some changes you might need to make, and even just some formatting things that can make a really big difference in how you look at the business and have those indicators that help you drive forward. And as Deric talked about, not have those knee-jerk reactions.
Awesome. Thank you guys for investing the time for this conversation today. I think, as always, you guys added a lot of value today, and a lot of people are going to get that from this. So thank you for that. I'm looking forward to the next conversation with you.
Thanks. Have a great one.
Thank you.